Samantha from Jellyrolls here, and today I'm going to show you a fun way to create a Skinner Blend Jellyroll Mokume Gane. Now, I am going to be using some custom made colours today, and the colour recipes for that should be shown right at the beginning of the tutorial. They should also be listed in the description. This is colour number 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then I'll also be using just regular pearl white, and this is all made using Polymer, but you can use any colours you want and any brand of clay that you want. Okay, and so the first thing to do is to take your colours, and we're going to be making 2 Skinner blends from them, and I'm going to be making a Skinner blend with the first 2 and then the last 2. And as you can see, the purple over here has quite a bit less clay, and that's just how the colour mixing ended up. So I'm going to work with that first to make just a small triangle, and then I'm going to use that to decide how much of the pink that I need. And by doing that, I'll just cut a rough square using that triangle as a measurement, and I will do the same here because this ended up having less clay than this colour over here. And you can use that colour for a bunch of other different projects. So you just take that and you pop that together, offsetting it slightly so that you're going to have some pure purple on the one side and pure pink on the other side. Just go trim away that extra pink, and you go do the same with these 2. Okay, and then once you've got those 2 ready to go, all you do is you'll just take it and you'll roll it like so. If you have a pasta machine, I would recommend using that, as it will make the process go quicker. But you end up just rolling it flat and then folding it over. And I ended up having a little bit of leaf, so let me just get that off. But you'll just fold it over and then roll it flat again, fold it over again the same way, and continue repeating that process over and over again until the 2 colours start to blend together. And you would do that with both of the Skinner blends. Okay, and there are how the 2 blends should come out. And this was rolled out on about the middle setting of my pasta machine, which makes each of these pieces around about 1 millimeter thick. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide which side I want them to be on. I'm going to have it be this way. I'm just going to stack them on top of each other like so, and then just trim away the extra clay. And it does not need to be perfect in terms of being a rectangle, but you do want to remove a fair bit of the larger piece of the Skinner blend, because you want these to be as even as possible. Alright, then I'm going to grab the pearl white. It's not quite long enough, so let me just make that as long as the blend here. Okay, and just pop that over the top as well, and then I'll just grab this, flip it over, and also again trim away that excess clay. And because it's just plain pearl white, you can just pop that straight back into the packet where it came from. Now I am going to roll this back through the middle setting of my pasta machine, again about 1 millimeter thick, and I'm going to stretch it out so that the blend stretches. You don't want to be stretching it this way, you want to be stretching it either that way or that way. Okay, and here is how that should look. Okay, and I'm going to be rolling it with the Skinner blend facing inside so that the pearl white covers the outside. And I'm going to be rolling from the dark colour that I have here. This is colour number 3 from the, the colour recipes that we made. And you're just going to take that and just roll up the whole length of your blend like so. Then just press that all together like so. Okay, and I am just going to trim this in to show you how it looks, because you could use it as a cane at this point if you wanted to, so you can see roughly how it's going to look there. But I don't want to cut off too much, because actually let me just trim this side and then you'll get an even better view. Okay. But you can see roughly how that would look. It would make quite a cute cane, but in this case I'm going to be using it for Mokume Gane, so I don't want to trim off too much. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm now going to flatten that down into a slab that I can imprint with my pattern. And you can use anything to imprint the pattern. I'm going to be using a variety of cutters and blades and maybe a ball tool. You could use a texture stamp as well, but I'm not going to be using a texture stamp today. And I'm just going to roll it out until it's about 3mm thick, or until I can just start to see the colour coming through the pearl white. Okay, then from there you're going to start creating your pattern. And now the centre part of my pattern is going to be this kind of wavy blade pattern, so I'm going to start with that. And all you do is you take that and you press it into the clay all the way down. And I'm going to press in again on either side, again cutting down the whole way. Leave that, and don't worry about the fact that this is basically cut your clay into 4 pieces. That's fine, it will get squished back together again later. Then I'm going to bring over 3 different sizes of mini teardrops cutters, and those I am also going to use. And let's see, actually I'm only going to use 2 sizes, they'll be too big otherwise. And I'm going to point the teardrop like so, and with this one I'm not going to cut the whole way down, just most of it, because otherwise it might stick in the cutter and I don't want that to happen. And I'm going to alternate between the larger cutter and the smaller cutter. And keep in mind, you can make any pattern you want. This is the cool thing about Mokume Gane, especially when you're creating your own pattern. Just find a bunch of little tools around the house and create your own pattern. It does not need to be using the tools that I am showing right now. And just continue using various items to press into the clay and create your desired effect. And I've made the petals, but I want to show you what I do with the ball tool. I'm going to go around those petals and press the ball tool in, because I didn't show that, so I just wanted to show that, how I create this pattern. Yeah. Okay, and there we go. So I did the line of little dots. Then I also went in with my blade and made a couple more ribbon lines and then filled in the space in between. Now what you're going to do is you're going to start pressing along the sides of the slab and just press down on top of it as well, and the goal is to just kind of get the clay to stick back together again and to form back into one piece. And you just want to go gently with this. I don't want to expand the pattern out too much. I just want to press it in enough that it's not all separate again. And you could even pick it up off the tile and alternate sides that you're pressing from. That can sometimes help as well, because if you press all from one side, it sometimes tends to fold in on itself. But that should be enough. Then I'm just going to position that in a place where I'm okay to cut it, and I'm going to use a roller to flatten it out. I'm not so worried about if all of these little holes are filled in. That's fine, they don't need to be. I'm just going to flatten it out again to about 3mm thick, and everything should be stuck together. Now at this point I would recommend just grabbing a piece of paper, it can be greaseproof paper or just regular printing paper, and just bopping that to the side, because all the pieces that we shave off of here are they're going to look quite nice and you might want to keep them and use them in the project. So have a piece of paper off to the side. Then just grab a blade. I'm using a nice thin flexible one, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to shave the Mokume Gane. And there's the little pieces that you get left over. So definitely keep those. And the reason I say put them on a piece of paper is because if you put them on a tile, sometimes they end up sticking and then it can be hard to lift them off later and they end up ripping, and then it's just not as good as it could have been. So just pop those to the side. And you could just continue going through the slab and shaving off pieces and not worry about the slab left over. You could just cut out as many pieces as you want. What I like to do is I like to have both. But yes, and your results are going to look different each time. It depends on the thickness of the clay when you've rolled it into the jelly roll. It also of course depends on the pattern that you pressed in. So this is quite a free-form Mokume Gane, and will yield different results depending on different things. But yeah, you can see it ends up looking quite nice, and I actually quite like that effect. I'm not sure if I want to continue shaving. I might just do another pass over here. But with Mokume Gane, oftentimes if you're happy with the result and sit back and say, I think that's enough, then generally it is enough and you want to stop, because sometimes you end up going a little too far and it ruins the result. So I've generally found that if you're happy with it, stop. Alright, then just grab another piece of paper and just give this a gentle burnish to flatten down any divots that your blade may have created. Okay. And that's pretty much the result, and it looks quite nice. Now, another thing that you can do, especially if you plan on making this on something that benefits from being double-sided, is to flip this over and to just gently burnish that down onto your tile. Again, I use a glazed ceramic tile. And remember when I said to press down the blades through the whole thing, and basically everything was pressed down almost the entire way through the slab? The reason I said that is because now you can go on the back and take slices from the back and you will still have a pattern. And it means you can get double slices, and it also means that your piece can be double-sided, and that is always very nice. So that's something to bear in mind when making this Mokume Gane, is if you can go through the whole way when it comes to the slab, I would recommend it, and then you can make it on both sides. And yeah, I'm also putting those to the side on the piece of paper. Okay, and that is how it should look, and I've burnished it so that both sides look nice. And from this point you can use it for whatever you want. I'm going to be making a pair of earrings, but for that I need another veneer, and so I'm going to grab a piece of black that's been rolled out on the thickest setting of my pasta machine, which is about the same thickness as the Mokume Gane that we just created. Now I'm just giving it a burnish quickly. And then I've got a silk screen with a pattern that I think matches the Mokume Gane nicely. So use any silk screen that you think works, but this is the silk screen I'm using. And I'm just going to pop off the backing and just pop that down onto the clay, smooth that down. And I'm going to be using silver acrylic paint. Any silver acrylic paint will work. I think that that will match quite nicely with this, and it will stand out well against the black. Okay, and the cutters and the silk screen that I'm using are available on my Etsy store, Jessima Design. There is a link in the description below if you're interested in checking them out. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to swipe that across the surface and make sure that I have a decent layer, because I want it to show up against the black. Okay. There we go. Then I'm going to pop that into a sink of water and give it a light scrub to clean it off while this is drying. Okay, and there we go. It should only take about 5 minutes to dry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just bring over the cutter that I have chosen to use, which is this little convex spearhead cutter. Again, use any cutter that you want. And I'm just checking roughly where I should cut in here, because I want around about half of the cutter to be this pattern, and then the other half the Mokume Gane pattern. So pop that to the side and lift that up. Then I'll bring over the Mokume Gane, and I'm actually going to do this all on a piece of paper so that I can keep a nice clean burnish. And I'm just going to trim this down because I have some uninteresting spots down here. And you can of course use this. I'm going to pop that with the other pieces from earlier, but I'm positioning this so that when I cut out my earring pieces, so that I can get some of the better spots. Okay, then once you've done that, just make sure that that is dry. And then just burnish the two pieces together, focusing especially on the join line between the two slabs. And just giving it a good old burnish. And this is both going to smooth out the sides, and it's just going to bring the two pieces together as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just flip this over like so, because on the back we have this kind of plain black area, which is something you can keep, but I find it a little bit boring. So I'm going to just bring over the paper from earlier with our Mokume Gane pieces on, and I'm just going to place a couple down. Not too many, just enough that it creates a little bit of a pattern. Okay, I think I want just a little bit more there, so let me just grab one here. And don't be afraid to break it up into pieces if it's too large for your liking. Okay, there we go. And then just pop that back to the side and continue burnishing it so that this side is smoothed out as well. And that should just about do. Okay, and then I'm not too worried about which side I'm cutting on, so this is the side that's currently showing, so it's the side that I'm going to cut from. And I'm going to cut at an angle like so. Press down, and hopefully it doesn't stick in the cutter. It shouldn't, but we are cutting on a piece of paper, so it may stick. And then I'm going to cut at the opposite angle so that the earrings are mirrored. And cut. And lift. Okay. And then also I do want some toppers, so I'm going to be using this little piece here. But before I do the topper, it is going to be a, oh gosh, what are they called? Studs. I want to embed a stud first before I cut it out, so let me just bring those over. Okay, and there we go, I've got those two. And I want to cut them out around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place, and actually no, that's probably not a good idea. Let's not do that, because that would end up distorting these potentially. Let me lift that up first and remove these to the side. And what I'm going to do is, this should be enough to cut out two pieces, yes. So I'm going to just cut that across, and at this point, if you wanted another pair of earrings, just take that and join that up with the other piece that you have. And then the leftovers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to cut this out on a tile that I can pop into the oven. So I just grab that, because this is a fairly small cutter, and I am pretty sure that if I cut it out on a piece of paper it will stick in the cutter, so I'm going to instead cut it out on tile, which will provide a bit more of a sticky surface. Then I'm going to place the studs down and just see if that is the correct spot. That should work. Gently press that down into the clay so that it's got a little bit of an indentation. Then grab one of your little pieces of clay from earlier, pop that down over the top, and just gently press that into place, like so. And then just cut out the stud. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut about halfway, then lift up, and then cut again, and that releases the clay from the cutter a little bit so that it doesn't stick. Then you're going to repeat the process with the other stud. You're just going to press down, place the clay over the top, and cut out the other stud. Okay, then lift up that extra clay around the edges, and then just gently smooth it down if it needs to be, and just leave those exactly as they are, and we'll pick them up after they've been baked. Okay, and then as for these pieces, I'm just going to take that and lift it off the clay, off the paper. Let me use my blade to do that. There we go. And unfortunately the paint did stick to the paper a little, so what I'm going to do is let's see if I can fix that up quickly. Okay, and so unfortunately there isn't really a way to reapply the silkscreen effect, not without cutting this off and reapplying the black. So assuming you don't want to do that, here is a way that you could potentially fix it. And for that I'm going to grab my blade. Also I would advise grabbing a little safety guard and just applying that to the bladed part of the blade so that you're only using the blunt side. And what I'm going to do, put this one to the side so that I don't do that at the same time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to texture this so that it not having a complete pattern doesn't matter quite as much. Going to texture that, and I'm also probably going to just texture this top part as well. Okay, and I am going to need to recut it because you can see that has distorted it quite a bit. I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to do the sharp side as well. Just apply less pressure because that could cut straight through the clay. And that's my idea of fixing it. But if you don't like that, then you could of course just drop the black off and remix it through the machine, re-silkscreen it, and then just burnish it back onto the Mokume Gane side of things. Okay, and then once you're okay with the texture, then you can just take this and recut it. Okay, and there we go. Those are the two that were the fixes, and then these two I took the piece of silkscreen clay that I had left and the Mokume Gane that I had left, and I cut out the pieces and just made sure that the paint didn't stick to the paper. So I've got both types over here, and they're also both double-sided, as you can see. So yeah. Now I'm going to bake those for a full hour from a cold oven at Primo's recommended temperature. If you've preheated the oven, then you only need to do it for about 40 to 30 minutes. And that is at Primo's recommended temperature, but it depends on what brand you're using, so use whichever brand's temperature is recommended. But yeah, bake for a full hour, and then we can do a little bit of sanding and finish them off. Okay, and here they are out of the oven. So you can see how they look. Now I've decided to seal these, or they don't actually really need to be sealed, but I'm going to put a layer of resin on top of one side of each. So I've got them lying on the sides where I am going to be putting the resin on, and these ones I am going to just leave the way they are. Actually no, these ones I probably will put resin on. I'll have to see. But then on the other side, so the opposite side, this one's textured, so I'm going to end up putting a little bit of varathane varnish on the back. And this one as well, I'll probably put a little bit of varnish on the back, or maybe I'll sand it and finish it up that way. But I am going to be putting resin on these. And so before I do resin them, I do want to give them a very quick sand. Mostly because let me just direct this into the light. Hopefully you can see here that the metallic of the clay, the metallic particles spread throughout the piece, and when you sand it you reduce down those metallic particles just to the metallic part of the clay. I do hope that makes sense. Basically what I'm saying is by sanding it you clear up the image slightly and make it less just in general shiny, and focus the shiny parts down to exact points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this polishing paper, this is a 400 grit, and I'm only going to sand the Mokume Gane side of this, because if you sand the paint it will get removed. And I generally recommend doing this if you have metallic clay in your piece, because it's kind of like having glitter in your projects. It just generally gets everywhere, and we have some opaque clay in the Mokume Gane, and so I want to make sure that those parts stay opaque and the metallic parts stay metallic, and this just cleans it up. Okay, and that should be generally enough. And then for these ones, I'm also going to sand them, but because I am going to sand the non-textured side, I don't need to worry about sanding only the one spot. And so the entire side is going to get sanded. And again, that's just to generally clean it up before applying the resin. Okay, and then once that's done, you're good to varnish them. If you want to just use gloss varnish, you absolutely can. But I'm going to be using this UV resin today. Any UV resin will work. So let me just open that up. There we go. And all you're going to do is you're going to take that and just apply it to your piece. Like so. And add less than you think you're going to need. That way there's much less likelihood that it will overflow. Just take some tools and spread it around, and then if you need to add more then you can, but otherwise add only a little bit, and generally I find that it's more than enough. Also, sanding the piece will remove a lot of potential oils on the surface that can cause the UV resin to pull away from the edges, so sanding's also great in that aspect. But of course you can't sand the painted area. But there we go, that's that piece all finished up, and I'm going to do the same for the other three pieces. Then you're going to pop that under a UV light for about 15 minutes to let the resin cure, and then well, we can continue by drilling them and finishing them off. Okay, and here they are out of the UV light. And you can see that that really brings out the colours and the shine. Same on these ones as well. So now I'm just going to flip them over, and I'm just going to work on a piece of paper so that I can move them around as I need. Also these ones I'm not going to coat them in resin, I'm just going to apply varnish to them. But what I'm going to do is just going to grab a brush, and I'm using varathane polyurethane water-based gloss varnish. Okay. And I'm just going to apply that varnish to the surface of my clay. And I'm doing the textured ones, and when I'm doing the textured ones I am brushing along with the texture so that I don't end up developing more bubbles than I need to. Like if I brush against the texture, it, as you can see, it starts to bubble. So if you have a lined texture like that, a little trick is to just go parallel with the lines rather than perpendicular with them. And that just makes it easier to apply the varnish. It also means that the varnish gets in between the texture as well. Right, and that's that. And then I would do the same for this one and these two. And then for these, I am going to varnish the part with the stud first. Then I will flip them over and I will varnish the part on the back. You may need to balance them on something so that this doesn't prevent it, so that this doesn't have it at the wrong angle. I'll probably show that once the back's dried. Okay, and then once that varnish has dried, this is the result. You'll end up with a nice sheen on your piece. Then you're going to take that and a drill, and you're just going to drill a hole. Now when you do this, if you have decided to put resin on your piece, I would recommend drilling resin side first. That way you're pushing down on the resin and it won't lift up from the clay. Whereas if you're going the opposite way, there is a risk that by pushing through the opposite way, the resin, instead of actually producing the hole, the drill will actually just push the resin straight off of the clay. So definitely drill resin side first. Okay, and then once you've done that, you can assemble your piece. And I've just got a large jump ring and then a smaller jump ring. And I've decided against attaching these studs because I think that these pieces look nice on their own, and I did kind of string them with the stud before and it just ended up taking away from the piece, so I'm going to skip using the studs and just add the earring wire straight on. So I have finished off the studs and I will show them in just a moment, but yeah, I'm not going to have them with the full piece. If you want to, you absolutely can, but yeah. And there we go, that's all there is to finishing the piece off. And the nice thing about these is they're completely double-sided. Obviously you have the resin side and then you have the textured side. And let me just bring those over. I finished this one off. I finished them all off really. And this one, you can see that's how it turned out with the varnish on the back. Looks quite nice, but the resin really looks quite nice. You could also opt into resining both sides if you wanted to. Okay, and then for the studs, I varnished the front and I varnished the back. And when you're varnishing the front, so that they do lie flat, so that your varnish doesn't end up pooling, all I like to do is I'll just grab a piece of clay and I'll just stick them in like that. And you can pop as many studs as you want like that, and then once they're finished drying, just pop them out again and you can just use the clay the way it is. It's a perfectly little easy varnishing stand. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the tutorial. I do hope that you enjoyed it. I'm quite happy with how they turned out. I haven't done something like this in a while where I joined the two veneers together like this. I used to do it quite a bit when I first started this channel. Check out those videos if you want to, there's quite a few of them. But yeah, I actually quite like this style and I think it turned out quite well. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing, as it helps the channel out. And also, I post videos basically every single day, so subscribing will allow those notifications to come through so that you don't miss a single one. And if you'd like to support the channel so I can continue creating videos just like this one, please do consider becoming a member. There is a join button just below the video, or there is a link to my Patreon account. Both are places where I share exclusive videos that I don't launch on my YouTube channel. They cover more complex techniques, so you might be interested in that. Another great way to support the channel is to check out my Etsy store, where I sell things like the silk screens and the cutters that I used in today's video. Either is greatly appreciated. And again, thank you for watching the video. I do hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.